Okay, ladies and gentlemen, on that picture, so that was the last group released here on Robben Island. They were released on 27th of April, 1991. All those people where the people were serving between 15 years and life imprisonment here on Robben Island. And the total number of the people on that picture were 37 people. Please follow me. Ladies and gentlemen, on our right-hand side, we have a sport field. We used to play rugby and soccer there only on Sundays for 30 minutes. The other days we have to go and work there in lime and stone quarry. And there was a football club called Makana Football Club here on Robben Island. Makana was a Xhosa chief who was locked here on Robben Island. He tried to escape and he swam, but unfortunately he was drowned on the sea. So let's proceed inside.
Where you are inmate? Where you should
These are the names of former political prisoners who died here on Robben Island, but they were buried on the mainland. All those bodies were resumed on the mainland 3 years ago. The number of the ex-political prisoners who died here on Robben Island are more than this. And the names on the bottom, we are still looking for their loved ones. They died through the diseases like TB and double pneumonia, and also through the beatings that took place here on Robben Island, and starvation. So you may proceed. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How are you?
Are you fine?
Well, I'm also fine. And your guide is going to take you around the prison. Let me introduce myself. My name is Sparks, S-P-A-R-K-S, Sparks.
Sparks.
Yes, Sparks. I'm an ex-political prisoner. I spent 7 years here on Robben Island. I was charged in 1983 and released in 1990. My charge was terrorism under Section 29. So don't be afraid, I'm not going to terrorize you. I joined African National Congress and its military wing, Umkhonto weSizwe, the spear of the nation in 1981. During that process, I was arrested. I was arrested of recruiting people to join the military wing of ANC, Umkhonto weSizwe, sabotage, undergoing a military training, and in possession of unlawful arms, ammunition, and explosives. You are free to take pictures. You are free to ask questions. So we are now in F section, one of the communal or general cells here on Robben Island. And I spent most of my 7 years in imprisonment in this cell. This cell was accommodating about 60 people, 60. We were forced to share that bathroom. Inside that bathroom, there are 3 showers and 2 toilets. We were forced to wake up early in the morning at 4 a.m. in order to accommodate ourselves. If you didn't get a chance to wash, the authorities will lock you in solitary confinement. You will not eat the whole day, you will eat the following morning. And during those years, we had to wash thrice a week, during Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. The other 4 days, there was no water here on Robben Island. And we had to wash with cold water, even during the winter season. And people like Nelson Tata Mandela spent 18 years here on Robben Island, sleeping on the floor, using those 2 mats. And there were no beds, no sheets, no pillows. They were eligible to receive only 3 blankets. 2 blankets were used to replace a sheet and a pillow. So they were allowed to sleep with 1 blanket, even during the winter season. And during those years, there were no glasses inside those window frames. And the rain will come through inside the cells. Here in Cape Town during winter season, there's a lot of rain. It's very cold and windy. Other people got the diseases like TB and double pneumonia. And when they got out of this prison, they died. And the ex-political prisoners went on hunger strike for many days without food, demanding beds, and the authorities responded after 15 years, where all political prisoners were allowed to get beds. As political prisoners, we were segregated here on Robben Island. There were colored political prisoners, Asian political prisoners, and black political prisoners. Only male political prisoners, female political prisoners were locked in Kronstadt prison in mainland, and white political prisoners were locked in Pretoria prison, also in mainland. We were segregated on clothes wearing. The colored and Asian political prisoners were allowed to wear the long sleeve shirts, long trousers, with socks, shoes, and a jacket. But the black political prisoners were allowed to wear the short sleeve shirts, short trousers, with no socks, no shoes, no jackets. Even during the winter season, people like Nelson Tata Mandela spent 18 years here on Robben Island with no socks, no shoes, no jacket. And also, we were segregated on diet scale. That was the diet scale that was given to us as political prisoners. So colored and Asian political prisoners on mill, they were given 6 ounces, which is 200 grams. And black political prisoners were given 12 ounces, which is 400 grams. On red, colored and Asian political prisoners were given 4 ounces, and black political prisoners were not allowed to receive bread. They were allowed to receive Pulza Malga drink, the so-called energy drink. But it yet never gave us any energy. So Pulza Malga, the so-called energy drink, was a white liquid that was mixed with a white powder in order the black political prisoners cannot be able to have children. And during my arrival here on Robben Island, I was 17 years old, and I was warned by the elders not to drink that so-called energy drink because I won't be able to have children. Even those ex-political prisoners, the time they were released out of this prison, they end up divorced by their wives because they were not able to have children. And jam or syrup, colored and Asian political prisoners were given 1 ounce, and black political prisoners were not allowed to receive jam or syrup. And during our arrival as political prisoners, we were given the new names. As I have already mentioned, my original name is Bucks, but during my arrival, I was given another name, as all political prisoners who recently arrived on Robben Island, like Nelson Mandela, had never been called Nelson Mandela. I myself was called 5683, and Nelson Mandela was called 46664. And we were given a yellow card. On that yellow card, they would write your new name. That was the yellow card that was given to us as political prisoners during our arrival. So that was the yellow card of Billy Naya, who was serving 20 years imprisonment here on Robben Island. And he was charged for sabotage. And his new name was 6964. And this person, Billy Nye, was charged on 28th of February 1964. and was released on 27th of February 1984. So he served all the 20 years in prison here on Robben Island. Because if you have been sentenced for 20 years, you will serve all the 20 years in imprisonment here on Robben Island. There was no remission, no parole here on Robben Island. So Robben Island consists of 7 sections. There is a section for those who recently arrived on Robben Island, who will stay for a period of 6 months in solitary confinement. There is also this section for those who are considered the leaders of the organizations. People like Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, Mac Maharaj, and others. And also there is C section, which was used as a punishment section. If you have done something wrong here on Robben Island, you will be locked in those single cells in C section, where they will punish you. And there were 3 punishments that the authorities were using. The first punishment was the beatings, where they would use sticks, shambles, punches, whipping, and also kicking you. And also there was what they called in Afrikaans, 3 maal dagen, where you would be locked in solitary confinement the whole day with no water, no food. You will eat and drink the following morning. And there was a 30-day special diet where you will be forced to eat only porridge for a period of 30 days. A soft porridge with no sugar, no salt, no milk. A soft porridge that you can easily drink. You will starve for 30 days. And also there is this section for those who were arrested in Namibia, who were led by Toivo. They were brought here on Robben Island to serve their sentences. There is also E, F, G sections. Those are the communal or general cells like this cell. So now, let's proceed to Mandela cell in this section. We have a hospital. It's where those who are very mentally sick were locked. They were brutally beaten and tortured by the security police in detention. And they were brought in that hospital section in order to get some medical observation. And also there were those who survived the death penalty because they were sentenced for death penalty. And they appealed it. And the appeal was successful. And they were sentenced for life imprisonment. And the time they were told that the appeal was successful, they were about to be hanged. And they were very depressed. And they were brought in that hospital section in order to get some medical observation. Even now, there are still some other political prisoners who are still mentally sick, but there's nobody who's taking care of them. Some of them are unemployed and homeless. So let's proceed to Mandela cell. In this section courtyard, where people like Nelson Mandela used to eat and exercise, in front of us, we have a garden. That garden was made by Nelson Mandela, Inside that garden, there's that grape tree or vine tree. Behind that vine tree on that corner is where Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was hiding his manuscript, The Long Walk to Freedom. And the authorities found his book and he was punished. They didn't allow him to study for 4 years. And the time the authorities found Mandela's book, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela had already given another copy of the book to Mac Maharaj, the then Minister of Transport. Mac Maharaj was due to be released in 1976, and he smuggled the book outside the prison. And the book was read all over the world. Surprisingly, after our democratic elections of 1994, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela elected Mac Maharaj as the Minister of Transport because he was good on transportation of information. So let's proceed to Mandela cell. Okay, this is Mandela cell. You are free to take pictures. Inside Mandela cell, there's a bucket, 2 mats, and 3 folded blankets. The size of Mandela cell is 2 by 3 meters square. And ignore the paint on the walls. The walls are recently painted. Inside Mandela cell, there is a bucket that was used by Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela for 18 years here on Robben Island. Because there are no toilets, no taps inside their cells, they were forced to use those buckets to relieve themselves early in the morning at 7 a.m. They have to take their buckets to C-section where there are toilets. C-section is 200 meters away from B-section, and they have to leave their buckets there in C-section next to the toilets after they have emptied them, because they have to rush to work in lime and stone quarry. And when they came back from lime and stone quarry at 3 p.m., they have to collect their buckets in C-section and also their food. So you could imagine that a man carrying a bucket on his shoulder. On the other hand, you carry your food and you have to eat with your bucket next to you inside that courtyard outside. And when you finished eating, you have to take your bucket inside your cell. If you forgot your bucket there in C-section, you will face the consequences because the authorities will never open the doors for you after 3 p.m., after locking time. And also inside Mandela cell, there are 3 folded blankets. As political prisoners, we were forced to fold our blankets the way they showed us. If you have folded your blankets in a different way, the authorities will lock you in solitary confinement. They will beat you using shambox punches whipping and also kicking you. So Nelson Mandela spent only 18 years in that cell. After 18 years, he was deported to Portsmouth prison, where he spent 7 years. And after 7 years, he was deported to Victor Foster prison, where he spent 2 years, and where he was released in 1990, 11th of February. So Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison in total. And they were not allowed to speak to each other once they are locked inside the cells. If you are speaking with somebody next door, you will be punished. So after taking pictures, we'll proceed straight down that way. End of our tour. Any questions?
Can we buy books anywhere?
Oh yes. After this, we go to the Cura shop at the harbor. Yes. So allow me to thank you to come and visit this wonderful place of ours as political prisoners.